Catus. Maximus here. Just a quick little review of these old. I wouldn't say that they're old. You know, they're 20, 25 years old. There's a certain era of MasterCraft tools. These are like a house brand at Canadian Tire, but for a while they were in Fingerhut, and actually I ended up with a pretty large set of sockets from that era. It was like mid 90s through about 2000 that Fingerhut was selling them in the United States, and they turned out to be unicorn sockets. They were my very first socket set, and it was pretty comprehensive, and I didn't really know anything about tools. I just had super cheap sets, and on a whim, ended up getting this set through Fingerhut. So they had a second set, which had a little bit better. They said they were already called MasterCraft Pro, and the ratchets that came with the set, that came with the sockets, were okay, but they weren't quite as good as these. So these was like the other option. This was the only of the MasterCraft Pros that they had, and MasterCraft has since dropped the Pro line. They're still around. There also happens to be a boat series, but look around on YouTube. There's very few MasterCraft videos, and so I wanted to do a review of these flexed Williams Batwing style ratchets, quick release, just to get some of that information out there. Now, it was a very short era. These are going to be pretty greasy. I'll open one of them up just to show you. But I don't think the MasterCraft tools, they haven't had a Pro line for a while, and I don't think they're quite as good, but there was just a period of time there where they were excellent. I mean, I'm showing this 12 millimeter socket. It basically has no wear, and I've had this thing. This is one of my most used sockets, period. The set that these ratchets came in, surprisingly enough, the sockets weren't quite as nice as the sockets that came in the big set, so it was kind of a hit and miss type of thing. But I did like the design of these because they were indexable flex heads. They are quick release, so I've always been pretty respectful, knowing that they weren't as strong as solid head or sealed head ratchets. You can see I have a bit of wear on the anvil, but it's held up pretty nice. And they have a little bit of wobble, but still not too bad, especially after all the time. It has a cast zinc switch, but it is stamped pretty well, and it actually has never gotten loose on me. I think the only real criticism that I had about, at least on this one, was that the locking quick release, this didn't get quite made correctly, so it ended up just being a detent, and you don't have to press the button at all. And that'd be the only criticism. So these ended up being pretty nice ratchets. They actually have a nice design, even though they're Phillips screws. The screws go through the ratchet head and into the bottom plate, indicating that if you could ever get a rebuild kit for these, that it would come with all the parts. The reason I like this design is because if you strip out the bottom plate, all that comes with the rebuild kit, where if the screws are threaded into the forged body itself, if you strip out those holes, you end up with a ruined ratchet. Anyway, it's always stayed tight. I don't think I've ever adjusted the spring. Definitely pretty heavy duty, and it was this 90-degree bent angle with a flex semi-stubby. I'd say it's a short handle because this is pretty big for a stubby ratchet. Now let me pop this open. Here we go. We've got it open now. We'll just pop it apart here. Pretty easy to take apart. I should have used a lighter grease because it does kind of get gunky in there. But as we can see, it's just a regular old Williams design. I don't think it's a 72 tooth, it's like a 60 tooth. And they have 3 little teeth. The nice thing about this pawl design, let me put this back in here. Plenty greasy. Really thick bottom plate on that. Get this in here. The reason a Williams design is nice is because when it ratchets, when you're putting stress on it, what it ends up trying to do is just cause the pawl to ride up into the anvil, so it's actually putting stress through the pawl, right through the thickest part of the ratchet there, and of course trying to push the anvil itself through essentially the top of the ratchet. And the body is pretty thick, but it's definitely not something that's going to split or break out on you, and has always been really reliable. Never had any problems with it slipping. So anyway, I just wanted to make a little video just to, one, for completeness, and 2, that's kind of what I do, is create a lot of videos about stuff that there just isn't much information on. That way, if somebody ever maybe runs into an eBay listing or something for these, at least these older style MasterCraft Pros, they can know that they're actually a halfway decent ratchet, and are actually, in my opinion, better than the current ones. They have this MasterCraft Pro Maximum 90 tooth. and they don't seem super great. They kind of seem like the current AutoZone Duralast, which just aren't super great, but they used to at least make them pretty heavy duty, exactly what you would expect from a tool that actually had, you know, Pro. This is, at least when they put Pro on this, they were halfway meaning it. They're actually not bad quick release ratchets. And that's evidenced in other areas too, such as when you look at how the centering of the screw hole, really good. That's something that's often not very well centered. You can see how smooth the arc is where they did the grind on the fork. All those type of little details really show you that they were, at least back then, pretty nice ratchets. And if you ever see an old MasterCraft Pro, it may be worth picking up. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.